Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself a cup of tea or hot chocolate with marshmallow and snacks if you want, because today we have very interesting stories, and one of them is a story about a woman who put on a crap show cause OP refused to play with her son, no matter OP had surgery. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. Hi, I have a service dog for my seizures. Before I recount a tale of this humanoid embodiment of a wet poof, I need to say a handful of things about service dogs. In the US, there is no legit or legal certification or registration for SDs. There is no paperwork or certificate. There is no set harness or vest that makes a SD real, and SDs aren't even required to wear anything identifying them. For a dog to be a service dog, you must be disabled, the dog must be trained to do work to help with a disability, snuggling, or he makes me feel better by being around do not count, and the dog must not have any kind of bite record. The dog also has to be trained to handle being in public. I went to the redacted mall with my service dog and ended up going into a home decor shop. She was wearing a Harry Potter themed vest, Slytherin pattern fabric, but was marked clearly as a service dog. She was sitting in a close heel. I suddenly hear loud, angry, excitable barking, and it sounded like it was coming from a big dog. My SD had been attacked before, so I was kinda freaked already. I was looking to see if there was a second exit to the shop when I saw the older woman, EM, with her severely obese, hyperactive Labrador and wildly overstimulated child in tow. The lab was pulling at the end of his flexi lead, barking his head off, and it looked like his tiny red vest was either going to snap or cut through his fat rolls. She had the flexi lead attached to his vest, and he wasn't wearing a collar. We're in sort of a weird standoff where I look like I'm one minor inconvenience away from a heart attack, and she's smirking, letting her dog bark, pull, and fling saliva everywhere. The thing was acting like Cujo, bird dog edition. EM gets her son's attention by snapping a few times and then pointing at my dog and says, as loud as she possibly can, "See? That's a fake support dog. The real ones are always retrievers." I wasn't really sure what to say to that because she's wrong and her service dog is currently running in place at the end of its lead because it can't get any traction on the floor. I couldn't get past her because the little corridor to the exit was narrow enough for Cujo 2.0 to get a hold of my SD. I settled on move, "I can't get past your dog." She immediately starts getting pissy and claiming that my wolf hybrid, husky, but okay, is actually vicious and her dog only wants to play. I just sort of told her to move again. She started yelling for an employee, claiming she felt she was in danger and they needed to kick me out with my fake service dog because said dog, who was standing directly beside me, completely silent, was a direct threat to her psychotic lab. An employee, who looks as if he gave up on happiness at the ripe old age of 15. "Odd, dude, I'm sorry you have to deal with this kind of person regularly," comes over and glances at me, then turns his attention to EM. This convo followed. "Your dog is barking and not under control. Please leave. You can come back without him. Legal to request and enforce if the dog is acting like that, excuse me. Are you trying to deny me service because my son has an autism support dog?" Said over the dog barking itself hoarse. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, employees can ask people with disruptive or aggressive dogs to leave. You can still return without him. My son needs this dog. He can't leave the house without this dog. Whips out her phone, starting to dial 911, still just looking for a way to get out of the freaking store. On the phone with 911 dispatcher, crying, screaming about how her son is being discriminated against because he has a service dog, getting more and more frustrated because the dispatcher is taking maybe a second too long. She demands that the dispatcher send EMS and police, son, starting to cry, because loud angry mom is probably terrifying for him. There is a short lull, when her dog suddenly stops barking, sniffs the ground, and starts circling. He then pops a squat right in the Pottery Barn entryway, and drops an almost liquid poo so foul, that it could curl a lumberjack's eyelashes. The employee sighs and tells her again, to just leave, but not to come back. She resumes screaming. I zone out of reality and into the YE sports theme, because I'm trapped in the store not only by a possibly aggressive dog, but also by the river of molten dog crap spread out in the entryway. Police and EMS arrive, they start asking the three of us some questions. Employee and I are understandably losing the will to live, and EM is screaming and gesturing wildly, yanking her crying kid's arm around in the process. The cop turns to the employee and says which dog made that mess. Employee tells him the truth, it was EM's dog. EM starts screaming about how this is discrimination against her autistic son. The cop asks what task the dog performs, legal, and she says emotional support. The cop, of course, tells her to leave because ESAs don't have public access rights. EM suddenly interrupts cop and says that the dog is actually for her fainting episodes, and he barks when she is going to faint. Dog resumes barking and she dramatically faints. "Read," she said, "I'm fainting." And lowers herself to the ground, guarding her face, and then goes limp when she's on the floor. Everything is quiet for a moment until the cop says ma'am and she yells get the freaking EMTs, I fainted, I am injured. I have fully left this plane of existence and I am now watching in third person. EMS trundle over with a stretcher. Which she limply rolls onto, making those weird fatigued southern bell noises. Dog resumes barking. Son resumes crying. The EMTs ask who is going to take the dog because they are refusing to transport a possibly aggressive animal. EM resumes screaming about discrimination. The EM caves after they tell her she will not be going to the hospital until someone else has the dog. EM yells for her husband for 2 minutes straight until he comes up, takes the barking dog, takes the kid, and leaves. EM is shipped to the hospital, and hopefully the psych ward. A janitor comes to clean up the river of liquid doo-doo in the entryway. The employee goes back to the usual drudgery of working at Pottery Barn, and I go home because my batteries are empty. I admire you, OP, I wouldn't have handled with nearly the calmer class you did. Very well written as well. I'm really glad the employees and cops and EMS stood their ground and that you got out safely. A little backstory, I have a heart syndrome named congenital left atrioventricular block, which basically means my heart can't beat properly by itself, so I need to have a pacemaker which can only be implanted by surgery. Also it needs to be replaced every often, about each 5 or 6 or even 7 years, and this syndrome is for life. So, here is the cast. EM. Entitled Monster Mother, EK. Entitled Kid, FN. Front Neighbor, M. Mom, F. A friend of mine, me. Who knows? Anyway, this happened almost 4 years ago when I was 13. I was living in a relatively peaceful private neighborhood. I had just got out of the hospital due to a surgery to replace my old pacemaker and haven't been in my neighborhood for like 2 weeks. So as I was really tired of being restrained to closed rooms, I wanted to get out in the front yard. My mom was at my side the whole time to keep an eye on me, while I was just sitting on a chair taking the fresh air. There is when I saw him, a new kid in the front house about a year younger than me just staring at me without doing or saying anything. I really didn't thought that he could be a problem, so I just said hi at him with my left hand, since the right one was totally immobilized for safety reasons. This will be important later. However, he just rushed into his house without even saying hi back. I actually couldn't care less, so I didn't pay attention to it. Big mistake. Just after that my mom told me she was going to make some lemonade and asked me if I was willing to stay outside some more minutes or enter again. As I have already said, it was a private neighborhood with security, so it was okay if a little kid was alone in the neighborhood's park or something like that, which I replied to her that I wanted to stay a little more. She said that she was coming for me in 15 minutes after making the lemonade and cooking dinner, and then entered the house. Just after she came inside, EK appeared again, this time running as fast as he could straight to my house with a huge smile on his face. The chat was more or less like this. Hi. Hi, who are you? I am EK, the nephew of front house neighbor's name. My mom and I are visiting him. Oh, alright. So, do you want to play? Sorry EK, but as you can see I am hurted right now, so it would be painful to play. Also I am about to enter my house in a few minutes. Oh come on, just a few minutes, please. Sorry but I can't, no is no mate. Says something I don't quite understand and leaves. Not even a minute later I see Ek rushing out of the front house along his mother, who is clearly in a weird mix-up of upset and anger, and going to my house just like an enraged warthog. Just as I saw that I knew something bad was going to happen, and since my mom just left me like around 4 minutes ago, I knew I was on my own in this one. Why wouldn't you play with my son? What? I said, why don't you want to play with EK? Well, I told him I couldn't basically because I can't. I have just got out of the hospital. What a lame excuse. I am sure you are just faking it because you are just a lazy kid. What? Ma'am, I am serious, I just can't play. I got a congenital left atrioventricular block. I need a pacemaker in order to live, and I have just got out of the hospital cause they implanted it on me via surgery. What is that thing, Mom? Nothing, EK, it is just an invent this kid is telling to not play with you. You do think you are so smart, right? Inventing stories like that, I am sure you just heard that from TV shows like Grey's Anatomy or something like that. I mean, even if it was true, which it isn't, it is not his fault that you just had a surgery. Just make him happy, he deserves it. I don't even watch Grey's Anatomy. Here is where my friend appears, I swear that I saw him as a hero. Hi me, what is going on here? Hey, well who are you? This conversation is not of your business, youngly, so now get the hell away. Whoa, are you for real? This isn't even your house and it appears as you are harassing me. You do know he just got out of the hospital, right? So sorry for using this language, but back off and leave. M's mouth just dropped, her face turned red and cholery, and it appeared like if she was going to transform into the exact incarnation of Satan, if she wasn't already. However, just as she was about to start yelling again, my mother entered the scene. Now, my mother isn't actually intimidating like at all. She measures about 1.59 mt, 5.21 feet approx. And has a thin complexion, so although she was around 42 at the date, she looked like 28 maximum. Also, she doesn't like cursing, but this time, well, I saw a whole new face from her. What the hell is going on? This little brat won't play with my child, and his stupid friend appears to not knowing matters. Hey, he is my son and he can't play with yours since he has just got out of the hospital. Again with that stupid story. It is more than obvious he is in perfect conditions, he is just lazy as hell and doesn't want to play with my little angel. Meanwhile, this was happening, the little angel got his way up to me and since I didn't notice started to try to lift me up using my right arm, which was immobilized and was really harmed during the surgery, seriously, like very harmed. I of course did a little scream of pain when he did it and my friend get him off of me, but this just awaked M's internal banshee. Hey, leave my precious child alone, you little crap. Proceeds to push my friend. While she did this, she grabbed herself my right arm, who was still in pain, and pulled it with all of her strength so I would get out of the chair and prove I was faking. I literally felt my muscles getting ripped inside of me and shouted a massive scream of pain. In that same second my mom slapped M's face with all her force to set me free and comfort me while I was in the floor. Meanwhile my friend ran to get help and the front neighbor stepped outside, probably after hearing my screams. What in God's name are you doing, Em? I just wanted him to play with EK, you know he isn't good to make friends, and I was not permitting this lazy kid would abandon him to play alone. He doesn't make friends because of you and also because you never educated him correctly. Don't you dare telling me how to raise him. You know what, this is why we don't invite you to anything anymore. You always get in this kind of problems. At this point I couldn't understand anything else cause of the pain, so I believe several minutes had passed while they were arguing. Meanwhile, the cops and an ambulance had shown up, apparently F had called them after he left searching for his mom to help. My mom told what happened next. It appears that EM was arrested and my mom pressed charges for assaulting me, so she spent around 6 months of prison for it. Also FN had apologized to my mom for the behavior of his sister. What happened with EK is still a mystery to me, but I really couldn't care less about it. Even if you weren't ill or feeling sick or being hospitalized, if you didn't want to play with him, you didn't have to. Jesus, lady, raise your child, set boundaries and certainly don't assault somebody. I'm glad to read you're doing well now. I was a supervisor in a chain of stores in the UK. One night the manager left early and it was me and 2 other staff members until close. A woman, EM, came into the store with a baby and a 3-year-old. She wandered up and down the aisles until finally approaching me at the till I was covering, so my colleague could get a break, couldn't let the other one cover as she wasn't allowed to leave her section. EM scurried up to me with a pram and 3-year-old in tow and asked if we could let her use the bathroom to change her baby. I apologized and told her we couldn't as our stock is kept back there and it was for employees only. She pleaded to let her use it, saying she was a single mother and really needed to use it. I repeated myself and told her no with an apology and said she could easily go to the McDonald's across the road as they most likely would let her use theirs. She scoffed, saying how the manager always lets her use it and started wandering about the store again. A few minutes later, I saw her quickly leave the store. I thought thank God because I could hear moaning up and down the aisles. I went back to what I was doing when I started to hear sobbing followed by ear-piercing screaming. I quickly ran to investigate and found the 3-year-old wandering up and down the sections crying for her mummy. I kneeled down, still having an eye on the tills, and tried to calm the kid down. I told her nicely to follow me and took her to the tills. I was furious at anything could have happened to her innocent little girl. A stranger could have easily left with her and I wouldn't have noticed. No wonder the kid was so upset, I would be too if I was her. A while after, a good 30 to 40 minutes later, showed up with the baby and was all smiles. She saw her daughter and started the whole come on time to go crap with her. I stopped because I was furious. I told directly that we are not babysitters, we are a retail business, and I am appalled at the fact she just left her kid here and how anything could have happened to her, also explaining how upset she was. Instead of getting angry like most she tried the whole poor me act. She began trying and failing to look sad and say how the manager said she said that I was wrong and would look after her daughter and how it wasn't her fault. She continued by saying that I don't understand how hard it is to raise 2 children single-handedly and how at least my manager understood, followed by how she was going to tell her about the mistreatment and get me fired. She then had a smug look on her face as people watched on looking angry at me. I just gave a blunt response back, I'm sorry, but my mother had 4 children under the age of 5 and was still able to watch all of us, she never abandoned us once in a store. I know it's hard raising kids by yourself, but abandoning them with strangers is a terrible idea. And as far as your claim that the manager said it was okay, don't lie to my face, he left about 2 hours ago and would never let you do that, my manager was strict. You're talking to the person in charge right now. Looked pretty shocked, she obviously assumed I was just a girl on the tills. I then told her if she wanted to put in a complaint she can. She said she did, so I gave her all the details with a smile and informed her that an investigation would be held. She looked pleased until I mentioned that part of the investigation would be to review the camera footage. Looked enraged at that point, grabbed her daughter and left. I told everyone that the show was over and to carry on with what they were doing. She never complained. You should have called the cops. That was pure child abandonment. I know it seems drastic, but she left with her pram but no kid in it. How do you not notice that? Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a woman with a man who called the police cause OP is playing cruel games in his house. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.